Okay, so Sarah Beznos is here, I think.
Yeah.
So for Geula, okay. Tehila,
She was here, but I don't know if
Hannah Sternberg was here. Okay, Sharonell, Leah, okay, Shayna, there you saw before. Tova,
Yeah, Shayna.
Shayna there, okay. Sarah Mora, okay. Sarah Abigail, okay. Rivka, Anna, let's see. Tamara, Michal, okay. Ariel, okay. Malka is here. Sirka, Bina, and Talia. Okay. You're Bina?
Bina.
Bina,
Yeah.
okay. BB, okay. So we're continuing with this book, even though this is just an overview, but I think we do the overview before we start going into details with the Rambam. So here we are up to page 21. And now we'll go to page 22. Page 22, that's where it talks about, again, the ingathering of the exile and the resurrection of the dead. And then we started talking about it, but we didn't get too far. Again, this is not the place we're going to go into it in detail, just to show the source. No, I did. We did do 22. So let's see where we're up to. 23. Let's do 23. We did 23 also, that there will only be one king, and he'll be a descendant from David HaMelech, from King David. We're going to see this in Halacha as well, that one of the conditions or criteria for the person who's going to be Mashiach, he must be a descendant of King David. Number page 24 and 25 is again where we see that when Mashiach comes, the third Beis Hamikdash shall be built. So page 425 is very interesting. This is a story in one of the prophets called Yecheskel, where he said that an angel came. He was in Babel, he was in Babylon. The angel, he saw a vision where the angel carried him over to Israel, and he showed him the third Beis Hamikdash. And not only showed it to him, he told him to take measurements of each detail that he's showing him. He had a measuring stick in his hand, and he measured the walls, and he measured the doors, and he measured the rooms, and he measured every single detail. And he told them, go back to the Jewish people and give over all this information. So this is in the book of Yecheskel. If you open up the books of prophets, you'll find it in that chapter, which is chapter 45, 41, 42, 43. And there's something very interesting about this, and that is that it says in the Medrash, when God said this to this prophet, he said to Hashem, what's the point telling them now about the building of the temple? They're in exile, they're suffering, they can't do anything about it anyway. So this information will only, in a sense, increase their suffering. Let me wait till they get out of exile, and then I'll talk to them about it. And Hashem's response was, this is what it says in the Medrash, Hashem's response was that just because they're in exile, my home should not be built. You tell them that if they will engage in studying this subject, the measurements of the temple, I will consider it as if they're actually building it. That's what it says. And based on this, in the 1970s, the Rebbe came out with a campaign. This was during the 3 weeks. The 3 weeks are 3 weeks in the summer, which is dedicated to mourn the destruction of the temple. It starts with a fast day, the 17th of Tammuz, and it concludes with a fast day, which is Tisha B'Av. And these are the 3 weeks that the Romans and also the Babylonians, they entered the city of Jerusalem, and there was a lot of fighting. It took time till they got to the actual temple, and they burnt it down on the 9th of Av. So for these 3 weeks, we don't have any weddings, and a lot of halacha, things that we don't do as an act of mourning. So the Rebbe introduced that during these 3 weeks, we should study these laws of how the Beis Hamikdash is built. On what basis? It says here that Hashem says, if you will study the laws of how the Beis Hamikdash is built, I will consider it as if you're building. So when the 3 weeks come, what are we supposed to focus on? The mourning, the loss, or we're also supposed to focus on the future that Hashem promised us will take us out of Golus and will rebuild the third Beis Hamikdash. So as we know in general, the Rebbe always tells us to focus on the positive end of things. So too in the 3 weeks. Yes, we have to talk about the loss, the destruction, the tragedy, but the main focus should be that we're coming to the end of the tunnel and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and we should focus on the laws of the Beis Hamikdash. Now this needs more explanation, but I just want to put some explanation in so you'll be able to fall asleep at night. What does it mean? I will consider it as if you're building. We're not little children that are playing pretend. What do you mean? It's as if you're building. Well, you're not building. There's no Beis Hamikdash. So the general answer to that is understood more when you study this according to Chassidus, and that is that when you study the laws of building the Beis Hamikdash, even though it's not building, just learning, but in a sense, what we are accomplishing is we're building the Beis Hamikdash in its spiritual source, in the spiritual realm. And the more things are built and established in the spiritual realm, the more likely they are, and that has an effect that it should evolve from the spiritual to the physical. Remember, when you study Chassidus, one of the most fundamental principles of Chassidus is that everything that happens down here originates up there. First, it's there, but in a spiritual way. So today the sun is shining. The fact that the sun is shining down here is because there's something up there spiritually, that's the source of the sun and source of sunlight and source of the warmth. And from there, it evolves down here. On another day, there'll be a snow or a hurricane. That means something happened up there, which is a hurricane or a snow, but something in the spiritual sense, the source. And from there, it evolves. And when it evolves down here, it manifests in a snow, in a hurricane, in an earthquake, in a volcano, in whatever it is. So when Hashem will have us build the Beis Hamikdash, there's going to be a process. Right now, it's sort of being built in the spiritual realm. And eventually from there, it'll evolve and manifest into a physical building in Yerushalayim on the mountain. So by us learning the halachas, we're enhancing the process of the Beis Hamikdash being built in the spiritual realm. And this is the source. So not only are we told that there will be a third Beis Hamikdash, we're actually given the dimensions, the measurements of every detail. In fact, it's a very complicated few chapters because it's all about the measurements, and a lot of books were written. Actually, not too many books were written, and some books were written in English trying to explain how those measurements, how they all work out. Number 26 and number 27. The downfall of Iraq, which is Babylon, will precede the redemption of Israel. A prophet will arise before the redemption that will prophesy the above. So that's page number 26 and number 27. This is something which is a little bit more relevant to us. And that is, and this is one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing, and we'll learn more about this, is that the belief in Mashiach is nothing new. That's always been. The newness is the message that now we're living in a time that what's happening in the world is part of the process of the world changing and Mashiach coming. So it's based on a lot of things, but one of the things which this whole awareness took up much more steam, so to speak, was the war with Iraq, what we call the Persian Gulf crisis, and then the war in the Persian Gulf. When that war broke out, there was in 1991. The crisis began in 1990, and then the actual war was 1990, 91. The Rebbe pointed to a medrash, and the medrash describes that there's going to be a crisis in the Middle East, and describes the geographic location, which the Rebbe said is referring to this location and this crisis we're experiencing now. And the whole world will be terrified that this is a danger, and everyone was worried what's going to be. The Jewish people will be extremely worried. Where can we run? Where can we hide? And Hashem is going to say to us, don't be afraid. Whatever you see happening is part of the process of redemption, because the time has already come for you to go out of Golus. In other words, the story with Iraq is really Babylon. If you know the history, Iraq is Babylon. And the Rebbe was saying that this that we're experiencing now is actually Hashem sending us the message that we're getting close to the time that we're going out of this exile. Where is this based on? So if you look at page 26 and page 27. On page 26 it says, there shall be another vision. Look at the bottom of the page with the English. A prophet shall arise at the end of the years. A vision shall be revealed concerning when the appointed time shall be for the downfall of Babylon and the redemption of Israel. In other words, the downfall of Babylon will lead to the redemption of Israel. And the Rebbe said this downfall of Iraq, and by the way, if you're familiar, and if you ever read any books or articles, Saddam Hussein, who was the dictator and the one who was the head of Iraq, he was obsessed that he is a reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. And he was obsessed with the idea that the king of Babylon didn't finish the job wiping out the Jews and taking over Jerusalem, and he's going to finish that job. So he was obsessed with the destruction of Yerushalayim. And that's why when there was a crisis, what was the crisis about? You know the history, that Iraq attacked Kuwait. Kuwait is a very rich city in oil, and they just came in unprovoked. They took over everything, and they thought they'll get away with it. But there was an uproar. The whole country, the whole world came out against them, and America threatened that if we can't take care of this peacefully, we're going to attack you. What was his response? If you attack me, I'll attack Israel. How does Israel come into the picture? Of course, what he wanted to do was attack Israel. Israel will attack him, and all the other Arab countries will come to help him. And it's going to become it could have become, later they said that this was like just inches away from becoming a third world war, this crisis. And it ended in a miraculous way. He actually had his missiles pointing to Israel, and 39 Scud missiles fell in Israel. And it's hard to imagine, but not one single person died from any of the 39 Scud missiles. It was clearly miraculous. And the Rebbe said this is all part of this process. So this is where this prophecy is. And on page 27, here's where it talks about the dead rising. May your dead come to life. May my corpse arise, awake and shout for joy. Who rest in the dirt and the sand, for your dew is like dew that revives vegetation. In other words, just like dew falls on the ground. If you live in Brooklyn, you don't know what dew is all about. But if you live in places where there's grass and there are trees, when you wake up in the morning, the grass is wet. That's dew. It refreshes everything that's on the ground. So it uses this term that Hashem will send a spiritual dew on people that have passed away, and they'll be brought back to life. And we're going to have, of course, a class going into the details, when that'll happen, who that'll happen to, how that'll happen, and all those details. But it's definitely one of the major principles of belief. And there's a few places in the books of the prophets. This is one of them where it says that at that time, the dead will arise. Page 28. Page 28 talks about the subject which we already mentioned, that before Mashiach comes, there'll be something which is equivalent to labor pain in a sort of in a figurative way, that will be suffering, not God forbid that it has to be this way, and we don't understand why, but it's just explaining what. And that's on page 28, that at that time, the angel Michael will stand. He's the great prince in heaven that is the advocate for the Jewish people, because there'll be a Eis Tzara. There'll be a time of trouble and distress that nothing has ever been like it since the beginning of time. So, like I mentioned to you, this is the reason, this is one of the sources why after the Holocaust, all Torah authorities from all ends of the spectrum, everyone said, there's no doubt in their minds that what the Jewish people just went through is the fulfillment of this prophecy. So therefore, what's coming next has to be Mashiach. And here again, you have the verse at the bottom of the page. I think it didn't come out in the English because it was stapled. But in the Hebrew, you can see, Rabbi Majeski Adas Ofar, many of those that are sleeping in the earth, they'll wake up and they'll live forever. Okay, then we go to page 29. Page 29, this is in the book of Daniel, one of the prophets. And there's a few things that we'll find here. Number one, that the time of Mashiach is called a kates. This is a term which we're going to have, and we'll be using it often. In fact, once we start our regular classes, I will give you a list of terms, and these are all terms that are related to the subject of Mashiach and Geula. And one of them is the word kates. Kates means an end. When you find that word in the books of the prophets or in Gemara or any other Torah book, it's usually referring to the end of the Gullus, the end of the exile. So here's one of the sources where we find that the word kates is used as a reference to the end of the exile. Another thing we'll find here is that when Mashiach will come, there'll be a lot of confusion. Now, of course, Mashiach is going to be a time of bliss, but it means before the process comes to complete fruition, as we're in the process, there'll be a lot of confusion. Before Mashiach comes, many people's true identities will become exposed. And another thing, that the Mashiach will first be revealed and then hidden and revealed again. And fortunate will be those that will continue to wait for him and not give up. So where is this? This is in the book of Daniel on page 29. So and look at the bottom of the page where it says, Hashem said to Daniel, the matters referring to the end of days are obscured, sealed until the time of the end. In other words, it clearly says there's a lot that's hidden, and we don't really know exactly what's going to happen. We have a general idea, but not all the details. They will be elucidated and clarified and refined by many people. The wicked will act wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand, but the wise will understand. Clearly saying that when Mashiach comes, there'll be those people that won't understand that what's happening is part of the process. But the wise people will understand to identify that the changes in the world are part of the process. And then towards the end, it says these words, as for you, go to your end, you will rest, and then arise for your portion at the end of days. In other words, God is speaking to the prophet Daniel and telling him that he should rest, meaning to say is eternal rest. But eternal is not forever, because when Mashiach comes, he'll rise. And that's the word kates. In the Hebrew, it says the word kates a few times, all the way at the end, the last line. Now, what I'm not showing you here, but I put it down in the notes, is that it says these words, fortunate are those, praiseworthy are those who wait. Then it gives numbers, 1,335 years, a lot of commentary on what it means, what is it hinting to. But we will learn later that Rashi commentary says that it says Mashiach is compared to a deer, deer, the animal. And a deer, very often when you see it running, it appears and then disappears, and appears and disappears. I guess because it zigzags between the trees. When two people are walking, say, "Oh, look, there's a deer," and the second person says, "I don't see anything," because a second later it's concealed by a tree, and then it comes back out again. So it says that the same happened with Moshe. He came to the Jewish people, told them they're going out of Egypt. There was a big controversy. Some believed him, some didn't. And then for a few months, he disappeared. And then he came back. And the same will be with Mashiach. And again, all these things, we don't know exactly how they'll be until it'll be, but it means this is one of the possibilities. Yeah.
When you're saying about like changes in the world and like people who are like learning will like know that Mashiach, people who aren't, well, kind of a thing. How do you know? Is it just from like studying the signs of Mashiach that you know if that's a change that needs to be fixed and helped, or a change that is like a good change? That makes sense.
So what we're going to learn, and I think we already learned a little bit about it, is that here we just said the Holocaust is one of the signs of Mashiach. And then we say that other things which are positive changes are the sign of Mashiach. We're going to learn that actually there are two kinds of things that are happening simultaneously, and they're both signs of Mashiach, even though one is positive, one is negative. How that's possible, I don't want to say everything now, then I'll have nothing to teach next week. So we'll have to leave that for a little bit later, but there is an explanation to that. And now there's another thing. There's one thing is I studied the Torah, and we study the sources, and they describe what the world will look like when Mashiach is about to come. And we look around and say, wow, this is exactly what it says. That's exactly what it says. And then there's also the fact that there are certain people, and that's why we refer to the Rebbe, and others which are tzaddikim, they're righteous people, and their knowledge is not just dry technical knowledge, book knowledge from a book, but because they're people of a higher spiritual caliber, they see and they know and they recognize that what's happening is the process leading up to Mashiach. So here's the good news. Page 3031. When Mashiach comes, everyone will have prophecy. Okay? So you'll be able to have prophecy soon. Get ready. Where's that? This is on page 30 on the bottom. It's describing the times of Mashiach. And then it says, it's all the way at the bottom of the page. And it will happen after this, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. Your sons and your daughters will prophesy. Your elders will dream prophetic dreams. And your young men will see visions. Even upon the slaves and the maidservants, in those days, I will pour out my spirit, meaning the spirit of prophecy. So when Mashiach comes, everyone will be raised to a higher spiritual plane, and they will have the spirit of prophecy. You were going to ask a question before.
Mm-hmm. Oh, just an observation that the idea that like the wicked will be revealed as wicked. There's definitely like a lot going on right now where politically we're hearing about the things that like the highest ranks of government and the corporatists are doing, like the stuff with Jeffrey Epstein and just all these people that we thought were good political figures turned out to be involved in the most horrific, unbelievably terrible things.
Right.
And to kind of, now that almost seems normal, but like 30 years ago, it would have been unfathomable that people in that level of power ranking could have been also that evil at the same time.
Corrupt, right. This is what's happening now, and it's coming out in the open. And that's pretty much what it says in that prophecy. But the good news is it's also in the good, that there's certain people no one would have dreamt they have so much good in them. And that also is coming out in a way that we've never seen before. So we're seeing both. The general idea is that what's beneath the surface is coming up, to the surface. Okay, and we go to page 32 and 33. Initially, when Mashiach comes, people oppose him and blaspheme him. That's the prophecy, that's the page 32, 33. Again, bringing out the same point, that even though when Mashiach comes, the whole world will be clear and be happy, and everything will be good, but in the process leading up to it, there'll be confusion. And in fact, there'll be people that will oppose him. And again, we find the same thing happened to Moshe Rabbeinu. There were people that opposed him and did not believe that he's really a true messenger of Hashem to take them out of exile. 33a, it says Mashiach will come on a cloud. I'd like to show you this inside, 33a. On top of the page. I was watching in night visions, meaning a prophetic vision, and behold, with the clouds of the heaven, like a man came. Now, before we learn Mashiach is coming on a donkey, and here it says he's coming on a cloud. And both of them could be not literally, but just in a figurative way. But which is it? Is he coming on a donkey? Is he coming on a cloud? Now, we're going to learn more about this, but I just want to throw in this point. The Gemara, the Talmud raises the question, that isn't it a contradiction? And the Talmud says, Mashiach is coming without a question. We're going to merit Mashiach's coming. But how he's going to come, in what way it's going to take place, that'll depend a lot on our merits. So coming on a donkey means that it'll come in sort of a more natural way. Coming on a cloud, meaning to say Mashiach will come in a way which will be phenomenal, out of this world things happening in the process of Mashiach arriving. But both are possibilities, and only when that actually happens, which will we know which one is it that's taking place. But part of this idea that Mashiach will come on a cloud means that the changes, just like on a cloud, will be carried with a cloud to Yerushalayim. Doesn't necessarily mean physically we're sitting, with chairs on a cloud, but it means that we'll be transferred to Yerushalayim in no time. Again, years ago, it was also something unimaginable, unfathomable. You tell somebody, could you imagine in 24 hours, all the Jews will be in Israel? Impossible. How's that possible? Of course, miracles are miracles. We believe in miracles. We're waiting for miracles. We're hoping for miracles. But now is a time that we can visualize this even in a very natural way. It's called an airplane, a jet. And try to imagine, just use your imagination. Mashiach comes, and like you said, all the nations of the world will be with us and supporting, and they're going to say, we're donating our services. Whoever wants to go to Israel, you can take any airline you want. We'll all be there to fly to Israel. How long will it take it for everybody to get in Israel? Theoretically, yes, we can all be there within 24 hours. So it's just something which it's not a cloud, but it's just the idea that we could fly to Israel in no time. Years ago was unfathomable. Today, we can visualize it in a very real way. Hashem is helping us being able to sort of accept and allow all these things about Mashiach register in a very real way in our minds. Like I told you about the shofar. Remember, it said Mashiach will blow a shofar and the whole world will hear the shofar. How's that possible? When you blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah and you're in the back of the shul, you can't hear it. So how are you going to hear it? The whole world's going to hear a shofar? But if it's being covered by CNN, the whole world can hear it. Today, you don't even need CNN. You just go on your phone and you click onto the internet, and someone could be blowing shofar, and every single person in every part of the world could be listening and hearing it. So we're living in a time where a lot of the things that it says about Mashiach, which years ago people could not even imagine as reality, today we could picture it in a very real way. The next page, we're here already, let's say next page is page 34. So you've heard the name and the word Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. He's the one that comes to the Seder on the night of Pesach. But what it says about him, and here's the source, that when Mashiach will come, he'll be here to introduce Mashiach, to let the world know that Mashiach is coming. Who is Elijah the prophet? Who is he? So I just want to give you the historic background. If you read the books of the prophets, the Navi, you'll read about a prophet whose name was Eliyahu. He was a man of flesh and blood, a child of a father and a mother, and he was a righteous person, and he became a prophet. But then it says that Hashem took him to heaven, and he ascended to heaven in a miraculous way. It's described. This is not a medrash. This is not the oral Torah. This is in the written Torah. It describes that he went up to heaven, and in a sense, he became like an angel, but he still maintains both identities. One identity is an identity of an angel, and the other is he still has the identity of a human being. So there are times where Eliyahu Navi comes down to this world, and he is exactly the way he was before. In fact, there are stories where he studies Torah with tzaddikim, or like the story that we say that he comes to a bris, to a circumcision, he comes to the seder, and there are times where he's just in heaven and he's living in that world. So when Mashiach comes, he will be the one that Hashem will send to sort of announce Mashiach's arrival. Eliyahu Navi. And that's what it says. Hine shalech, I will send Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and awesome day of Hashem, and he will turn back the hearts of fathers with the hearts of their sons, and the hearts of the sons with the hearts of their fathers, which means that he will bring peace in the world, that fathers and sons, that means parents and children will be united, and all be united in a positive way towards Hashem. So this is also something which there's a lot of discussion. When exactly is he coming? Is he coming to announce Mashiach's arrival? Is he coming after Mashiach comes, before Mashiach comes? At which point is he coming? We'll learn all about this later. Hopefully we'll actually experience it, so we won't have to learn about it. We'll have all the answers. Okay. Here's another thing there's a lot of discussion about, this page 35. There will be a war of Gog and Magog. What's Gog and Magog? So let's look at page 35. This is also on the book of the prophets, where it says on top, which book is this? Yecheskel. Ezekiel, he was the prophet in Babylon when the Jews were in exile. The word of Hashem came to me saying, Son of man, direct your face towards God of the land of Magog, the prince, the leader of Meshel, and these are the names of prophecy concerning us. Say, I put the whole thing in, you can read it later. If you'll understand one word, that'll be pretty good. But basically it talks about there'll be a war between two nations. One is called Gog, one is called Magog. We don't know who they are today. These are biblical names. There's a lot of research people do. They wrote papers on this, articles that they think it's this country or that country. But it means that there's going to be a war between these two countries, these two nations, and it's going to have sort of repercussions in the whole world. And that's going to be part of the process leading up to Mashiach. So every time there's a war, people say, oh, this must be the war of Gog and Magog. It is, it's not. We don't know. We really don't know who Gog and Magog is. And then we'll also learn that there are opinions that it doesn't necessarily mean we have to expect a war to happen. It's not opinions, this is a fact. That even prophecies, if it's a negative prophecy, it doesn't have to come to fruition. If it's a positive prophecy, it'll never go back. A negative prophecy can be turned around through our good deeds and through tshuva. So no one should expect any wars. We want Mashiach to come only in a pleasant, good, positive way. If you look on the next page, 36, it talks about when Mashiach will come. And over there it says, it talks about redemption. Look at the part that's underlined. I am Hashem, and it's referring to the coming Mashiach. It'll be in its time, I will hasten it. It's almost like a contradiction of terms. In its time means there's a designated time for Mashiach to come. I will hasten it means Mashiach will come in a time that's sooner than the designated time. So which is it? And the answer is the same like before. It depends on our merit. If we merit, then the redemption will come earlier than the designated time. If we don't, it'll come anyway, but it'll come in the designated time. I remember I once called up the airlines to redeem my points to get a ticket. And they say, well, if you want early redemption, it's $60. Otherwise, you have to wait 3 weeks. He said, early redemption. Of course, I want early redemption. So this is early redemption. There's the early redemption, and then there's a time set aside for redemption. And that depends on our merit. We could make, and that's why the Rebbe emphasizes, we should add tzedakah, more Avos Yisrael, do more mitzvahs, do more good deeds. It's coming anyway, so what do we have to do all this work? The work is, it should be earlier redemption, come before the time. What will be with the nations of the world? So we said this numerous times, but here's another source, page 37 and 37a. Look at the bottom of the page. It says, Oz epech el amim, for then I will change the nations to speak a pure language. They will all proclaim the name of Hashem, to worship him with united resolve, which means all the nations, and together with the Jewish nation, all in a united way will all serve one God. Even though the other nations have 7 commandments, we have 613 commandments, but we're worshiping one God, and everyone is doing what they need to do. And so this is also something which is confusing, where some people have this idea that Mashiach is something only to the Jewish people, and the rest of the world has no part of it. Couldn't be anything further from the truth, because there's so many verses, and we say a lot of them in the davening, how when Mashiach comes, the whole world will be uplifted and inspired, and will be up on a much higher spiritual plane than we are today, and they'll recognize Hashem.
And that's the good of the other nations, the good things that they do count.
100%. Yeah, whether a Jew or non-Jew, anything good that's done helps to tip the scale. Okay, we have another minute, page 38. It says, as in the days when you left the land of Egypt, I will show wonders. Meaning to say, that just like we went out of Egypt, there were so many miracles, the splitting of the sea, the 10 plagues, and many more miracles along the way, the manna falling from the heaven. So Hashem promises us that when Mashiach will come, we will be seeing miracles. And here too, we'll go through this later in the class, so the Rebbe points to things that are happening today that some people might not even notice and just think, okay, this is a political change, this. But the truth is, these are miraculous things happening in front of our eyes. We're just not paying attention. If we pay attention, we'll see that we're actually beginning to experience miracles that are incredible miracles. And it's something which no one would have imagined. And yet they're happening in front of our eyes. And some people are just taking it very lightly because we're just not paying attention. Yep.
I'm curious, do some Christian clergymen reach out to rabbis to find out about the signs of the times of Mashiach coming, or is there some kind of communication from the Christian world with the Jewish world to find out?
There is, and that's also one of the miracles.
Sorry, what?
There is, and that's one of the miracles.
There is.
In other words, we don't have enough time to go into it, but next time I'll talk about it. Years ago, if a Jew would talk about Mashiach from the Jewish perspective, what we believe, speak about that in France, in Russia, in Poland, in any other non-Jewish country, it would have been extremely dangerous. It could have been killed, caused pogroms, because that's like attacking the essence of their belief, that who they believe in is really Mashiach. So the mere fact that we talk about it now, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of places, even though they're religious and they believe everything, they don't really talk about Mashiach, because for generations, it was something which was low profile, because it was dangerous in the non-Jewish countries to talk about this subject. People were put to death because of saying openly what they believed. It was like a disgrace and an insult to the Christian belief. So the mere fact that today we can talk about it openly, there are newspapers, articles, and you don't see any reaction in the negative, not from people and not from clergymen, nowhere, anywhere. In fact, we can find the opposite, which I'll show you articles later, how other religions said maybe the Jews got it right. These are things that never happened in the world before. And these are one of the signs that we're getting closer to a change. To be continued. Wish everybody a good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
And like I said, if Mashiach comes before Shabbos, we won't have to learn so much. We'll actually be seeing everything. It'll be easy to figure it out. What?
We'll get to eat the giant fish.
Yeah, for Shabbos, okay? Hope there'll be a lot of rain, yeah.
Wait, so question, so whenever Mashiach comes, since we learned that Hashem spends 25% of his time playing with the fish, what's he gonna do with that 25% of his time? Because the fish will be dead.
He's going to have someone to consult with and
Okay,
give
we'll consult
advice.
with his Rob.
Yeah,
All right, all right.
okay.
Exactly, like he's over here like throwing the ball for the fish, like,
What's the next?
Yeah. because he killed the fish.
The next class is Gemara.
So he has to be nice to the fish.
With
the fish
who?
doesn't have a
Rabbi
Oh,
Dubon.
yeah,
Yeah.
Rabbi, that's saying.
Rabbi Majeski, can I get in touch with you?
Who?
My friend Bluma is trying to get in touch with you. Oh, I'm supposed to share your number with her.
Okay.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Rabbi, he killed the female, right?
What?
With the big fish. Hashem killed the female. He was like,
So it shouldn't reproduce, right?
yeah, okay. Because it was way too big.
Yeah, if they had.
But like this other fish, Hashem just like throws a ball for it or whatever. I don't know.
He was kind of saying she's pretty good.
And she's finishes
Yeah.
growing.
But I don't know if it'd be like.
Yeah, that's happening too.
Yeah.
That thing.
And there's obviously an answer. And then like,
At
obviously.
the same time,
That's the other thing. I can't.
same time, there are people, maybe Jews are right. But there are people that go to pray.
Yeah.
And this and that.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Welcome. Everything is it? No, I didn't see it before. Or I did. I didn't. Depois. Agora. Enjoy. Vamos ter, né?